So who are we, why are we here, and what do we do? As Wayne very kindly introduced earlier, you know who I am. Thomas Pocklington Trust is a national sight loss charity, and we support blind and partially sighted people to live the lives that they choose and want to lead. That doesn't mean that they all have to be Paralympians or they all have to be CEOs. It's what do they want to be able to achieve within their personal and professional careers and their personal lives, and how can we go about ensuring that the communities are inclusive for them. We have three main strategies that we work to. So there's the engagement team, which is the team that I work on. We have education, which would be the team that you guys would sit under, and our education team. And then our employment team, which again does what it says on the tin really. But conscious of having just a small amount of time today, if there are any questions that you have, please shout up along throughout the session. We have a Q&A session at the end, or we will be in the exhibition space until after lunch this afternoon, so do come and find us. So sight loss councils, TPT, or Thomas Pocklington Trust, fund the sight loss councils to enable people with lived experience of being blind or partially sighted to come together within their communities. So for the purpose of where we are today, it would be the Birmingham and Black Country Sight Loss Council, to work on things that maybe are causing them a few issues in their community. And that can be anything at all, from accessing education and training and skills to not being able to work with technology to do X, Y, or Z. It could be local authority, NHS trusts, leisure, you name it. If it's an issue, we will work with them and support them to get around the tables, to have conversations with people who are able to be in a position to make positive change within their community. So, how do we do that? Here's where I need you, Jen. See, you do have a job after all. If there are people that have the sim specs on, that wouldn't mind standing up if you're happy to and you don't mind talking, just to give a quick introduction to yourself.
Morning.
Morning.
I'm Michael. With these glasses on, everything is very blurry. There's black specks everywhere. I can't make out any faces. I can't read the text. It's a very strange feeling not to be able to see anything in front of me properly.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thanks, Michael. And who have we got? Morning. Patricia.
No, it's Patricia Ann. Yeah. Hi, I'm Patricia Ann Shields from Enfield. And wearing these glasses, it feels, I've got a brother-in-law and he's got tunnel vision, and I can actually, walk in his shoes at the moment, because it's like going through the Dartford Tunnel on a very dark evening, and I can't see anything from the left or the right. And as you can see, I had to struggle to actually, see where the mic was. So
thank you, Patricia Ann.
Yeah.
Pass over to Annette.
Hello, I'm Annette. I can't squint because I've got no sight in one eye, which is normally my way of getting out things, and I can just imagine myself falling over everything, this type of sight loss.
Thank you, Annette.
Thank
one
you.
more?
Morning.
Good morning, my name is Paulette from Northants. Wearing these, it's like I'm actually, if I take my regular glasses off, it's a bit like the vision that I have then. I have astigmatisms, and I'm developing cataracts, so sooner or later I'm going to lose my sight. So this feels a bit like that, but a little bit more advanced.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, everyone. Just wanted to highlight something there, is that for those of you that are wearing the glasses, of how important it is for you to know who else is around you, or actually it's quite difficult to do with a mic as how we would normally do this, but it's quite challenging to know when it's your turn. So if Jen hadn't have come to you with that mic, how do you know that it's your turn to introduce yourself? So when you're sat in a room, a classroom, a meeting, a networking event, whatever it is, it's really challenging to know that actually someone may be pointing to you to say, over to you now, or it's your turn to introduce yourself. And it's so difficult to know that. So we'll get onto it shortly, but communication is so important to those of us with sight loss. I think it's around 70 to 80% of communication is non-verbal, and we miss out on the vast majority of that. So just think about that. If you want to continue to wear the glasses, please do. Try different ones on. They simulate different eye conditions, but if you want to be able to see the slides, I also understand. So please do take them off as well. So a question, maybe we'll go to online, and then we can come in the room. But how many people do you think that there are living in the UK with sight loss at the moment? Who's the online? Is that you, Wayne?
Somebody's guessed 1.3 million.
1.3 million? Okay. In the room, anyone else? Higher? Feel like I'm an auctioneer now. Higher, lower. It is higher, absolutely. With the most recent statistics from the RNIB, there's approximately 2.23 million people living in the UK with sight loss. So that's quite a lot of us. We're not on our own out there. And it just goes to show that actually it can happen, and probably is happening, if not to yourselves, then to friends and family or people that you know within the workplace. So we're going to look at ways of hints and tips of how to maybe be able to identify that someone needs help, and how you can offer help and support to those colleagues or students in this case. Sorry, just in case you hadn't realised, I can't read what's behind me, so I've got it on my screen in front, and I'm trying my best to remember to do the clicker. So, in our lifetimes, there will be 1 in 5 of us, probably more in this room, who will experience sight loss at some point in our lifetime. So, if it doesn't affect you, your family, or your friends now, it probably is going to at some point in the future. And every day, 250 people start on that journey, which equates to about 1 person every 6 minutes. So whilst we're having this session today, if my maths is correct, there's going to be 8 people that are starting that journey and don't know where to turn, don't know what help and support is out there. And that's what charities like ours do, try and help them to be on that path and experience life in a fulfilled way. So there are lots of charity details on the presentation slides as well that are all on the app, as well as Wayne said earlier, that you can look into post this session if you do want to. So, again, there is a picture on the slide in front of us, just in case you're still wearing your sim specs, with a variety of faces on there. And it says, how do you identify someone with sight loss? So I'm opening up the floor again to you guys. Of that group of 10-ish people on the screen, how many of them do you think have sight loss? And what cues would you take to identify them? And there are no right or wrong answers, so please don't feel like you're going to say anything wrong. But stand up, shout out, whatever works. You don't know. There is no way for you to look at a picture of someone and tell if they have sight loss. Now, are there ways or some potential cues that may tell you? Yes, absolutely there are. But it isn't and shouldn't be the onus on yourselves who's interacting with that individual to know if that person has sight loss. It has to be a joint communication thing. So no, there is no way that you can just look at someone and say they do or they don't have sight loss. And I didn't catch your name, I'm ever so sorry. Anthony. We've all experienced that ourselves with sight loss, you know. Oh, wow, you don't look like you've got sight loss. And it's like, thanks. Is that a compliment? I'll take it. But, you know, depending on how it's said as well, it's like, actually, looks can be deceiving because you don't look ignorant, but clearly you are. So, you know, look, you can't tell anything by the way that someone looks. Some of you may be able to see that I've got sunglasses on my head. They're always permanently attached to either my face, which I said to Sammy I would try my hardest not to need to use today, or on my head, because I will be needing them at some point when my eyes get strained. So, yes, there is no quick fix, sparkly idea of that person's walking in and they have sight loss or they don't. So well done. Okay, so moving on to the terminology of sight loss. And ordinarily when we deliver these sessions, they're 2 hours long, so apologies if I'm a little bit scatty. We would have our sight loss council members with us who have different experiences of sight loss, lived experiences themselves. but their answers are always the same. There isn't really, unless you're extremely, extremely rude, which hopefully you guys aren't with the profession that you're in, a right or a wrong way of speaking to or about someone with sight loss. Are there ways that people will prefer? Yes, there are, but that's just the same as anything and anyone, whether that be a disability, a condition, a culture, anything. Well, some people will have preferences of how they're referred to. If you want to be PC, and the most up-to-date terminology, which I'm sure Jonathan and Graham will smile about as well, because it changes quite often, it's severely sight impaired for the old terminology of being registered blind, and sight impaired for the old terminology of being partially sighted. But all we would say is if you take one thing away from this session or the training that we do, is that communication is key. 95% of obstacles and barriers and challenges can be overcome by somebody being willing to communicate with someone. Quite often, we deal with lots of people in different sectors of society that are so scared of getting it wrong or upsetting someone that they just do not try at all. And that is so much worse than potentially getting it wrong. And as I said, it's a very, very small chance. But if you are worried that you may upset someone, just ask them, how do you prefer to be known? Like, what would you like me to refer to your condition as? And they'll let you know, hopefully. So yes, if there are any questions, as I said, just shout up as we go along. Okay, the other common misconception that we get if people are willing to communicate is that they make assumptions on our behalf. You're blind, so you can't do that. You can't possibly, oh, it's all right, we'll do that because we're going to be quicker. Or, oh, no, that's not possible. And are there some things in the world that we can't do as blind and partially sighted people? Yes. Unfortunately for me, but fortunately for you, I'm not going to be driving your train, your taxi, or your car back home for you this afternoon. But the vast majority of anything that doesn't involve needing to drive, we can do. And we can do them because, as the gents will come on to a little bit later on, technology is amazing in today's day and age. Reasonable adjustments can be made with or without technology in lots and lots of different ways to ensure that actually we can participate, we can add to society. There are not many things that we're not able to do. And it can be very debilitating when people make assumptions on your behalf. So if there is something else, it's that actually nobody in this room knows what we're all capable, well, unless you work with each other and are colleagues or friends or family. But when we're meeting in a work environment or in a school environment with children, you don't know what that person is or isn't capable of, so follow their lead and let them have that conversation with you. Sight conditions can vary massively, not only from person to person. So, you may say that, I think we've had Anthony say that he's got keratoconus. That doesn't mean that that Anthony's got X, Y, and Z, and this is how he deals with that. So if somebody else presents with that, it will be the same way, because it absolutely won't be. It's a huge, huge spectrum, but not only from person to person, but for that individual. So I can get up in the morning and see one way. If I'm not very well, I'm stressed, I'm tired, things are happening, what's the weather like outside, how busy am I, that will all affect how we see. So you may, sorry Anthony, it's the only name that I can remember. You may have seen Anthony and he's been able to do something one day, or he hasn't been able to do something one day, or in that morning, for example. But that doesn't mean that that's how it's always going to be moving forward. So just keep up that level of communication and follow that person's lead. If they want help, they can ask for it, but just offering help out and asking how you can help is huge to people within our community. So don't make assumptions, follow their lead, and we are capable of lots and lots of things that maybe you wouldn't think that we are. Oh, wrong button. So, back to the floor. And Jen, wherever you are. A couple of people that maybe have the sim specs on. Oh, I've gone a little bit fast. I don't know if you've taken them off. If some of you want to put some of the sim specs back on, that maybe didn't have the chance to introduce yourself before, we're going to just go over a very brief example of how describing something is so important. So if we do have a volunteer that's happy to speak on the mic and another volunteer that's next to them maybe that wears the sim specs. Jen, if you could just give us a shout when we're ready. I think we're ready. We're good? Okay. So I'm going to scrap this one because you've all seen it. But I'm going to put another image on the slide presentation now. If those of you that are sat down have some sim specs on, please do put them on. And what I want you to do is build up the image that, what's the lady with the mic's name? Claire. Claire's about to explain to you what she can see on the screen. So yes, let's go for it.
Okay, I can see what I would describe as probably a lake with some trees around it, blue sky, but you can only see like a small circle of it. Around it is completely black. So it's almost like a pinprick vision, I suppose, of what that lake would look like.
Thank you very much, Claire. Someone that's got the sim specs on, do you want to just let me know how it was to picture that image in your head? Yes?
Sorry.
Okay, my name is Sajda, and I can only see a bit of orange light in the centre and two sort of clouds of white light on top, and it's all surrounded by black around. I can't see the image, I can't see what it is. It just seems like a bit of light, maybe like three lights, white, orange and white, that's all I can see.
But with Claire's description, was that able to give you a little bit more of an image in your head than that?
I thought it's going to be landscape, that's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We'll try one more. Jen, have we got someone that wants to give a description?
Yes, we have. Is it Sharon?
It's Sharon Teresa. What I can see is just some colours now. If I'd been told that was the landscape, I just thought it was cloud formation with blue, white and some yellow. That's all I can see.
Thank you.
I needed that explanation as to what was going on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think it just highlights that actually, by giving descriptive information, we might not be able to see it with our eyes, but we can build that up in our head. It doesn't necessarily need to be a picture or a piece of art. It could be actually the classroom that we're in. Like, what is in front of us? Where are the walkways? How many children are we expecting? You know, is there anything that I need to be particularly aware of? Where's the board or the resources that we're going to be using? So, you know, just giving that descriptive language to someone can make their life, their anxiety a lot less and their life a lot easier, which means that the students and their colleagues are getting a better experience from that person as well. Thank you very much for that. So we'll skip through, just conscious of time, some other examples. So on the screen now, we've got an example of cataracts. Let me get on mine. The left-hand side is an image, hopefully, of how the vast majority of people see. It's quite clear, it's quite crisp. But even that person with cataracts that is seeing on the right-hand side of your image can still see and maybe make out what that is, but it's not very clear. So if the lighting in the room where this wasn't very good, or the contrast was really not very good, it would be even more challenging. So what adjustments can we make to ensure that actually the vision that people do have, they can use to the best of their ability with what they've got in their surroundings? So, communication. Some of you may have picked up already that I'm not very good with eye contact. And it's not because I'm not interested in what you've got to say, it's because it's very challenging. It's really, really difficult for us to sometimes hold eye contact, depending on our eye condition as well. Like, I have what's called a null point, so I may look like I'm talking in a different direction to what I'm actually looking at. And I think if someone's having a conversation with you, please don't feel that they're not interested or they're rude or they're off just thinking about where they're going to be going after they've finished that conversation or what they've got for the dinner that night. They may need to look in a different direction to focus on what you're saying. So we know that stereotypically people will say that it's rude if people can't hold eye contact in a conversation. But if you know that that person has sight loss, then just be mindful that actually it can be really difficult. They may not recognise you. So, you know, Anthony, sorry again, or Claire, I may know you, I may work with you quite often, and it may be, I don't know, you're a supply teacher, or a supply teacher comes in that you've worked with before and you think, actually, I know Lou, like we've done work before. But if they don't know your voice, they might not know who you are. So introduce yourselves. Hi, Lou, it's Claire. How are you doing? Blah, blah, you know, whatever it is that you need to say and do. That they may have recognised you in the morning, for example. But if you've gone home and got changed and you're wearing different clothes, it's not going to be apparent. So sometimes I can walk blatantly past people in the office. If they don't speak to me, I'm not going to know they're there. It's probably why they don't speak. But it is so important, if you're having a conversation with someone, to introduce yourselves. Also, if you're having that conversation with them out of context, so you may be a colleague, another teacher at school, but you bump into them in Waitrose or any other supermarket that's available, and you say, hey, and they're like, oh, and I've done this so many times myself. I'm like, I know that person, I know that voice, but I have no idea who it is. And by this point, they've asked how the children are, how did your operation go? And you're like, oh, they know me. And I'm too deep in now. I can't say, before I tell you that my daughter's not very well, do you mind me just asking who you are? Like, you can feel a bit stupid yourself. So, you know, the context of that voice and the location is also really important as well. So just being mindful. Hopefully you've experienced a little bit this morning wearing those glasses, that audio is extremely important. So just remember that when communicating. Try to avoid non-verbal communication. As we identified earlier, it's around 70 to 80% of how we communicate with each other. And it will come natural to you. I think even me now, like, I'm using hand gestures. But if somebody asks where something is, just pointing, you know, over there isn't going to be adequate enough. Doesn't mean that you can't point, because that will come naturally, but follow that up as well with something verbal. Oh, the door to the toilet's at the back of the room on the left-hand side. Do you need anybody to help you to find it? You know, you could probably still will do that non-verbal communication, but just follow that up with something additional so that we can get that context as well. So, maybe online. Does anybody know what this is that's on the screen now? A walking stick? Anyone else?
Somebody online says a white cane.
A white cane. And who's that person online?
I don't know, it came from Sammy.
Oh, okay. I was going to shout that person
No
out,
name.
but well done. Well done, no
Thanks,
name. A white cane, yes.
There's a variety of different canes you can have for different types of visual impairment.
Absolutely. Yes, there are. Thank you very much for that. So we do have some options of white canes out on the table, again, in the exhibition space, so please do come and have a look at the differences in them. But walking sticks, they are not. They are canes to help us identify what is on the floor, what's in our track, so that we're not going to be falling over. So this is my personal cane. I don't know if you guys can see online, so apologies if not. But does anybody know why my cane may look different to that white one that's on the screen? No, but good guess. I thought you were going to get it right then. It does signify that I have sight loss because it's a white cane, the same as the others, but it also means that I have a level of hearing loss as well. So it's a dual sensory cane. I have limited vision in my left ear. So if you see someone that's got a white cane that has red strips around it, it means that they, of some level, have hearing impairment as well. So it may be that actually you need to ask maybe a little few more extra questions of how to communicate best with that person. Like if you're sat on my left side, for example, I probably wouldn't hear you and you may think that I'm a little bit rude. So just another visual cue that's dual sensory loss. So thank you. Oh, wrong button. Anybody know what the gentleman has in his left hand? Absolutely, a guide dog. Thank you. Michael, was that? So often when we do this, we get told that, yeah, they're blind dogs. And I say, I hope for that man's sake that that dog's not blind, because they're about to get themselves in a whole lot of trouble if they are. So guide dogs, absolutely. Again, if you want to have conversations on guide dogs, please come and find us afterwards. But like the red and white cane, if the harness on the guide dog has red on as well, that will be the same visual signifier that that person has dual sensory loss as well. So, as we've touched on briefly, what can you do? How can you best support someone when you're sighted guiding them? Introduce yourself. And if you do, we would normally do some examples of sighted guiding here. If you do want to do that, please come and find us and we can do some sighted guiding with you in a little while. Always ask if you can be of any assistance. Can I help you? Don't presume that that person that's got a cane or a guide dog needs you to drag them over the road, because I'm telling you they won't. Ask someone if they need help. We are more than open, the vast majority of us anyway, to offer, to accept assistance if and when we need it. Sometimes, you know, offering assistance can put that person off their track, so they know that route, they've learnt that mobility, they know where they're going. And if you pull them in another direction, they can find it difficult to get back on track. So just ask how you can help. Do you need any help? Yes. What do you want? How can I help you? And it may be that they say they needed sighted guiding, so check what's the best way. Again, for reasons that we've already discussed, they may have hearing loss or other issues, so that they may not have sight in one eye and some sight in the other. So a certain side may be useful for them. Be precise and friendly and clear with your instructions and your description, as we've briefly looked at already. Giving that information to somebody. I was with a colleague recently and we were at a leisure centre delivering some VI awareness, and there was a group of school children, very well behaved they were, but they were only about 6, very small, and it was very noisy. And she's like, oh, there's a queue of about 30 children on your left-hand side. They're all in a line, but because I can't hear very well out that ear, I could hear noise, but I was like, I don't know what it is. But that just means that I could be aware then that actually there's a possible likelihood of one of those kids getting out of the line and coming in my path. So just take it easy, know that they're there, and it's nothing to worry about. Although I'd worry about 30 kids, 6-year-olds. Teaching's not my profession. But yes, remember that you're probably not always going to be the same height as the person that you're guiding. So look up as well as around. You need twice the space that you would need for yourself to get through a door, a corridor, whatever it is, when you're guiding somebody. But again, we can arrange to do some demonstrations of that a little bit later on, if you want to. So as teachers and just people generally, how do you think you interact? What are the possible ways that you can interact with people? Conscious of time, I've just realised. I'll just tell you. I'm like, be quick, Louise, be quick. So it can be, have I moved across? Yes. Unplanned in person or planned in person. So, you know, you may get a VI parent turn up at school, you don't know. There's not meant to be a meeting, there may well be. It could be online, a website. We have School Ping. I'm presuming a lot of people have something similar. So like an app that communication goes through to parents. It could be in a letter, social media, or over the telephone. I'm just going to skip through all of these because otherwise Jonathan is going to shout at me if I don't leave him any time at the end. But there are different ways on the presentation of ways that you could communicate with people on there. I think the bit that I just want to quickly go over before I move on is how you can support colleagues and students in the arenas that you're in. So some of this we've covered already, but identifying yourself as you enter, but also as you leave a room. Graham, the amount of times sometimes you still sat there having a conversation with someone and they've been and gone, they've left, and you're looking like a bit of a silly sausage because you're talking to yourself, but they haven't told you that they're leaving. So it is just as important to introduce yourself, but also let that person know when you're leaving the room as well. Make workplace adjustments for colleagues and make sure that they're easy to access. It's no good having adjustments in place and you've got the kit that you need, but it's locked in a cupboard in the headmaster's office that you've got to go and find 3 keys to access. It's just like, just make it easy and simple for that. Don't make assumptions, as we've said already, on what they can and can't do and what they are and aren't capable of. If they need your help, they can ask for it, but just check in with them every now and again. Be approachable and understand that maybe sometimes things are just going to take a little bit longer. We can do it. We will make adjustments for ourselves, but sometimes that does mean that that task is going to take a little bit longer than you may be expecting it to. Avoid the need to change the environment. and I don't know how often, it's been quite a long time since I've been at school, but it's probably easier in a primary school setting than maybe in a secondary school setting. Is there a need to change the classrooms? Like, can that person, and thinking about this from a student's perspective compared to a teacher's or a colleague's, it may be easier for some people than others. And sometimes, yes, they have to move classrooms, but ensure that they are aware, they are familiar, and they've had that navigation to ensure that can happen smoothly. Treat them the same as you would your sighted colleagues. As I said, we are all human. I would say normal, quote, unquote, but I'm definitely not normal, and it's not because I can't see very well. Any documents or presentations that person's going to be needing, please make sure they've got them in a format that is accessible to them, in the print or the font size that they need, in Braille, in over email, whatever works for them, but before it's needed. Not when that teacher's meant to be supplying that classroom and she turns up or he turns up and it's printed there and then and they're expected to deliver in 3 minutes. That's extremely challenging. So make sure that people have got what they need before they need it. Just moving on quickly onto the students in the classroom, how can we help those? So ask them, what do they prefer? They are the specialists. If they're very young and they don't know, speak to their parents as well. You will find out a lot of what you need to do just by asking. Going back again to the communication, communicate. You will solve everything that you need to solve, almost, by being able to talk and be open and transparent. And if you can't do it, don't say that you can do it. Tell them that they can't do it and the reason why, and work together to find out what can be done instead. So have a look at the levels of light. Do they need to sit in a particular place in the classroom? And that may be different for different subjects. So again, communicate and ensure we've got what they need. That child may need longer. I think we all know that sometimes in exams, they get longer to do exams, but they may need longer in classroom as well to be able to complete and accomplish tasks that you're setting. So just be mindful. Take advantage of the assistive tech. Get ready, Jonathan. That is available. There is so much to learn, and I think I just want to apologise for being maybe a little bit rushed today, but I wanted to try and get as much in as possible in the short space of time that we had. But please do come and find us. Have aware of the sim specs. Have a look at the assistive tech that's on offer, and I will hand over to Jonathan to give you a little bit of an overview on assistive tech.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jonathan Ward, and on my left, on your right, I've got Graham. We're better known as the Ant and Dec of Thomas Pocklington, or for the older members in the room, Laurel and Hardy. So we sit in the employment team. Our job is very much about inspiring and encouraging people to reach their potential. As Lou said, everyone can do pretty much what they want to do, but it's knowing how to get there, and that's what we do. Okay, so as Lou says, time is short. We are outside. I do have a Rubik's Cube and a blindfold if anyone wants to take that challenge, plus some tech for you to come along and get your hands on and play with. I've said that we try and inspire people. There's probably no one more inspiring than Graham, who I'm going to hand you over to now.
Okay, so my name is Graham Page, and I'm involved in working in the employment team at Thomas Pocklington Trust, and I work with actually quite a lot of people just starting out in learning about technology. And I wanted to briefly mention a few of the things that have made a real difference to me. I could go on about it for some time, but I've got 2 minutes. So, when I was at school, well, first of all, I'm one of the few people who are totally blind. Most people do have some vision, but there are people, there are a few of us with none. So Braille, I learned in school. For a long time, people tended to say that people don't need Braille because they have computers with speech output. The people type, but they have speech output. This is certainly true. It's true that people can use speech output, but the ability to read in Braille, to be able to spell words, to be able to use, to understand, you need to know how a word is spelt, ideally, as well as how a word is pronounced. It's hard to guess how you spell words. Many of them aren't spelt how they're pronounced at all. So I've used Braille, I've used computers with speech. These are technologies that have been around for some time, but we are going to demonstrate artificial intelligence is playing a part in many areas of technology, and it's also playing a part in the way that visually impaired people can do things like read documents. So Jonathan is going to be demonstrating, it's an app available on both Android and the iPhone called InVision. And originally this app was used with glasses, and it allowed people to wear glasses and look around. But one of the things they've recently introduced is the ability to scan a document using the app as well as the glasses. We're using the app on the phone here. But you can scan the document and then you can ask it questions. So you don't have to read the whole thing. We are going to scan a leaflet.
Open NVision.
We're going to scan a leaflet, and then once the leaflet has been scanned, we'll be able to ask questions of that document. So you don't have to read the whole thing to find out a relevant bit of information.
Reading in English.
So Jonathan's now scanning the document.
Take photo. Move phone down. Processing. Navigate up. Button. Scan document. Reader preferences. Button. Scan document. Processing. Works for me. Navigate up. Button. Employment program. Double tap to activate. Works for me is a free service for blind and partially sighted people.
So this is the leaflet being read
support
out.
you to develop your skills too. Find work or further your career. The support offered is personalized to everyone's needs.
Say we want to find the phone number.
One-to-ones pause. One play.
Now, you could read the whole document, but it'd take ages. It'd take 5 minutes. If someone asked you for a phone number and you were looking at that leaflet and they asked you it and you were on the phone to them, they might have fallen asleep by the time you find it. Take about 10 minutes to read that whole thing. But we can ask NVision to find out that phone number, and if the technology works properly, well, it's going to tell us.
Where is the phone number on this leaflet?
Processing your request. The phone number on this leaflet is located towards the bottom, under the section titled, Find Out How Works for Me Can Work for You. Ask NVision.
What services are on offer?
See,
Client-side error.
artificial intelligence.
That's the wrong
Jonathan said, asked the wrong question. He said, where is the phone number? And of course, it told us exactly. What you probably wanted to ask is, what is the phone number?
Sorry. Go on, Graham.
Yeah, so ask what is the phone number should do it.
Ask your question.
Artificial intelligence getting slightly more intelligent, but it can't always guess what people want yet, but we are getting there.
What services are on offer?
Processing your close. Button. Processing your request. Double tap to activate.
This is done online at the moment rather than on the devices because they're not.
The services on offer by the Works for Me employment program, as detailed in the document, are targeted towards blind and partially sighted people. The services include 1. One-to-one support with a member of their employment team, which can be accessed over the phone, via email, or virtually. 2. Matching clients with career coaches for coaching and mentoring at no charge. 3. Assessments of IT skills by experts.
I think,
with
just conscious of time, Jonathan, we've only got a couple of minutes left.
This is actually a better example of a question because it's going through the document and saying which services are on offer. It's not giving the address, it's not giving history of the organisation, it's not telling you how many people work there, it's telling you about the services. And this potentially is something that artificial intelligence could be really useful for.